The borders of space and time have opened once again, and transmitting from the mountains of West Virginia, it's time once again for Let's Find Out with Diego. The universe is waiting for you.
All systems go.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, we're diving into a world where journalism and psychology intersect with the unexplained. Our guest is an author, former rock journalist, and paranormal researcher. He has a unique perspective on the strange and the sublime. Get ready to explore the myths, the music, and the miracles. All this plus more. Please welcome back a good friend of our show, author and researcher, Maxim Furek. Maxim, my friend, welcome back to Let's Find Out, brother.
Thank you, Diego. And Bill, you couldn't have done a better introduction than that. Thank you. And I just want your listeners to know that I didn't pay him to say that. So, yeah, thank you. It's good to be back. And I think the last time we talked, Diego, was Friday, March 21st of this year. So, yeah. And I remember we were talking about, I believe it was co-region hoodoo.
We did. And we also, just at that time, I believe, Lost Tribes of Bigfoot just hit the shelves.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And we have, of course, had an excellent conversation about Bigfoot and we had a lot of other strange stories. We talked about like the worst song in the world, which times it's not because of the quality of the song, it's because of the subject matter of that song for that time. So how has Lost Tribes of Bigfoot been received so far? And I'm not only talking about from the reader, but from other researchers as well.
Well, first of all, you have to realize that in the totality of Sasquatchery, there's been hundreds of books written about Bigfoot, and we're getting a bit tapped out. I mean, it's just very difficult to have a book that takes a fresh perspective on what Sasquatch is. What I try to do in Lost Tribes of Bigfoot was I try to take a look at all of the different theories about what this creature could be. So metaphorically, these are the lost tribes, whether it's Neanderthal, Gigantopithecus, Australopithecus, the alleged missing link, whatever, the Hobbit. I mean, there's been a whole lot of things out there, cryptids that researchers like Jeff Meldrum believe might be, connected to Bigfoot. So we don't know. And my premise, Diego, is this: if it's not flesh and blood, what is it? So I just take a look at some of the theories as a scientist should do and look at them. And we're talking about things like mass hallucinations. We're talking about Jungian DNA, that what we're seeing is part of that DNA residue from our caveman ancestors, or even the interdimensional theory, which makes a lot more sense, probably to me makes the most sense of all, because I think, from everything I've been saying, Bigfoot seems to have psychic abilities. It shape shifts, it transmutes into one thing to another. It evidently, people that talk to communicate with it claim that Bigfoot has telepathic abilities. We talk about Bigfoot having bilocation or rapid transfer, that they're in front of you, then they're behind you. So I don't know, but all I know is, my theory is that it's interdimensional, and also that there's a whole lot of people seeing the same thing. And this was even before computers and microfiche and, AI and everything else. So, this shaggy creature has been around a long time, even though the white man didn't hear about it until 1958, when the Humboldt Times in Northern California printed an article about the California abominable snowman, and they called it Bigfoot. And that was the first time that word, that we heard about that. And it went on the wire service, went around the world, and the Humboldt Times got thousands of letters of people that said, yes, I believe in the California abominable snowman, or yes, I have seen this creature. So that was 1958, but it was new to us. Again, I say the white man, because the coastal peoples in British Columbia knew about Sasquatch for thousands of years. It was nothing new to them. They knew about that, and through oral tradition and songs and totem poles and everything else. So it's been around. And to see a Bigfoot was something of the sacred. It meant something, it was spiritual. So anyway, that's the backstory. But I just try to go and talk about Bigfoot in a refreshing way, in a scientific way, in a way that could add something to the discussion. So that was the purpose of my book. Not the same gone over a million times narrative, but so that's what I did. And even with the Patterson-Gimlin film, which is sort of the holy grail, I approach that from another perspective, and really believe that the Patterson-Gimlin film is valid, that was a Bigfoot.
Yeah, absolutely true. And I've seen that. I mean, just like you, I've probably seen it thousands of times, and I'm purposely trying to pick out something just to make myself not believe. But the more I see it, the more I'm like, okay, this is legit. This is the Area 51 of Bigfoots here.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned that only because the listeners can't see the back where you have the 3 extraterrestrials. You mentioned something about mass hallucinations, and does the math also work on the UFO side of it? Where can UFO sightings also be part of a mass hallucination as well?
Well, let me take it back to 2024 and the drone hysteria over New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Every one of us was looking up into the sky. It was like a Rorschach test, and we were seeing something. And, it was kind of crazy because everybody was getting a little bit concerned. I mean, not panicky, not suicidal, none of that, but we were concerned because we weren't getting any answers, and nobody knew anything. And the government officials could not articulate what we were looking at. We had the one guy saying that terrorists stole a nuclear device from Ukraine and brought it to New Jersey, and it was government military drones looking for that heat signature. We had that. We had a Republican female representative from, I think, South Carolina, who was on the UFO committee, who claimed that these could be extraterrestrial. She said that. And you had all kinds of things. I mean, we didn't know what they were. They could have been Iranian or Chinese. We didn't know. And that was 2024. Remember, back in 2023, we had the Chinese weather balloons or whatever they were. They're as big as a bus. And what was the end of that? I mean, what was the conclusion? What was the final verdict? I don't remember because I don't think there was one. That we shot a couple down, one in Canada, one in the Atlantic. But there was never any final word on that. There was never any apology from China. There was none of that. There was no closure, and for human beings to not have that conclusion, what happens is, we need that. We need that finality. We need balance. We need homeostasis. And when we don't get it, we make things up. And so you start getting conspiracy theories left and right. Again, we need to know the facts and everything. Same thing with the government, with Roswell and Area 51 and all that. The government's not telling us all that they know. And so because we don't know, we conjure up explanations and theories. And that's why conspiracy theories are so rampant. And we're living in this day and age of the conspiracy theory. Just amazing.
It is, because now you don't hear anything about these drones. And it's
and
the more you talk about it, I'm thinking, and I hate to use this term because it might not apply. I'm talking about like Mandela effect. Like maybe in 25 years from now, people are like, what are you talking about? And you'll see nothing about these sightings. Maybe a few here on the internet, but people will be like, this never happened. Yeah. But you'll remember, I swear to God, there were some.
Yeah. And if enough of us are looking there and expecting that, it's I'm trying to think, what's the term that we use with Bigfoot? Pareidolia, I think it's parabolia, I believe, that you see things, you see shapes and things, and the mind distorts them to answer your question, to see flying saucers, UAPs or cryptids. So it's our mind playing tricks on us. It's our mind misinterpreting stimuli. So again, not in every single situation, because I would say this. Certainly with UFOs, 3% of the sightings we can't explain. we don't know if they're ours, theirs, or some from someplace else. And I think the same thing with cryptids. I would throw that 3% at you and say that everything else it could be explained scientifically, whatever, but there's that 3%. And again, that speaks to the paranormal. That speaks to the anomalous, nebulous paranormal that we're trying to figure out what it is. It's so difficult.
It is, because depending on what side of the coin you grew up with, and I mean as far as religious or even non-religious or spiritual, that kind of determines how you interpret some of these things, right?
I think it does. And, a lot of us are afraid of the word God, but, I don't think we should. I worked in addictions for the longest time. And one of the most amazing thing was people that get into recovery. And one of the programs is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and they encourage the alcoholic to find their higher power. And this is something. It doesn't have to be Jesus Christ or Allah or Buddha, but it could be. But find a higher power that's bigger than you, that you can believe in and put your faith in and everything. So, for the alcoholic that is only looking for the next drink, and is pretty egocentric, I don't care about you. I'm just going to use you, work you to get my next drink. So by having a higher power, it gets you out of that egocentric little state of mind, that frame, and gets you with the rest of the world. That's more of a brotherhood of spirituality. So, I think all of us believe in God or a higher power one way or another, even if we're agnostic or atheist. We still bounce off that. So, I think people that don't like God are angry. And again, when somebody dies, we go through different stages, but anger is one of them before we get to acceptance. And I think some people are still angry at God that their little baby brother died, or that dad got killed, or whatever bad thing happened in your life. They're, I think, still blaming God rather than maybe understanding and then accepting. And acceptance is a hard thing for us to do, So to accept that bad things happen to good people, that's a hard thing to do for all of us. We're a human being. We all, pretty much, tick the same way, so.
Yes, that's unfortunately part of the human condition. We all have to suffer somehow on Earth.
Yeah.
And I guess some people subscribe to this kind of train of thought that sometimes suffering will introduce you to your higher self, depending on how you come out of it. There might be something to that.
Yeah. I believe that that we are flawed, we're broken, but we can be fixed. And I know I was a big fan of John Bradshaw, who did this inner child work, but he said that 99% of the families are dysfunctional. That means they're screwed up. And John Bradshaw said, you know what? I think it's actually closer to 100%. So every family, unless your parents were there every single moment, every single minute that you needed them, when you needed them, then if they weren't, then that could indicate some kind of dysfunction. But let's face it, we all, you were dealt cards, you play the cards, and that's just the way it is. And some people I'm sure have had tragic beginnings, childhood, school experience, all that, and they're dealing with that, which is, still dealing with that trauma. I was one of the lucky fools that just, got out pretty much unscathed and had a, good beginning and, and middle part of my life. And, things was good. So, I think, I've had a good life and I thank God for that. And, and I think it's important to express gratitude and appreciation for what we have.
Absolutely true. And sometimes we get caught up in our own woes and just forget to look up sometimes, and it's okay to let something else take control for a little while.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it might not, I don't know how that translates to the listeners, but I think it's been working for me for the last few years. And I'll make an awful transition here because you surprised me on something when you contacted me not long ago. And I'm embarrassed to say this is the first time I've heard of this thing. where we talk about Smurl haunting. I was going to say Smurl the first way. It's Smurl haunting.
Yeah. Smurl, Smurl. Yeah, Smurl. So I guess that's probably German. Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah, probably.
It sounds like it would be. Now, the reason I mentioned is the purpose why we're here tonight as well. But I've heard of a lot of locations that are haunted or have some sort of spiritual activity. We know a lot of the classics. We know a lot of locations now have paranormal investigators go in there for the night and investigate. A lot of the homes now are now being open to being investigated as well. One of the more famous ones when I was growing up, not only because of the name itself, because of the movies and the books that were written and the tragedy that happened in this house with, I think, the family called the DeFeos, correct?
Amityville. Yeah, absolutely.
With Amityville. Now, are these similar circumstances, these locations? Or are we talking about, is it the same tragedy? What's going on with the Smurl haunting?
Yeah, well, you're right. In my book, the Smurl haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town, I don't know if we've introduced that book or not, but that's my latest book that's coming out shortly, published by Anxiety Press. But I talk about Amityville and Butch DeFeo, 23 years old, who took a rifle, killed his father, his mother, his two sisters, and two brothers. You know, they said they wrote about 8 shots and 6 autopsies, but 23 years old. And then George and Kathy Lutz moved into the house for, I think it was 28 days, and left because they said it was possessed. So that was the Amityville horror. The Smurl haunting in West Pittston, Pennsylvania in the 80s was a similar thing. And there seemed to be demonic activity, poltergeist activity. For example, grunting sounds, smells, horrible smells, profanities etched into the mirrors, the collie levitating and being thrown against the wall, the Jack Smurl, the husband, being raped by a female demon, a succubus, his wife being attacked by a demon. So what happened was they were Roman Catholics, and the church was very much concerned about, fixing this and getting it right. So priests would go over there and spend the night looking for, activity. They would bless the house. They brought in the local exorcist. Now, if you're not Catholic, your listeners should know that every Catholic diocese has a priest who's skilled in exorcism, and that's the medieval rite of chasing out these demons. And the first exorcist was Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Yeah. The first miracle he did was an exorcism, and he taught that to his disciples, his 12 disciples. And the way they could chase out the demons using exorcism was if they were in the glory of Christ, and if they would use Christ's name to cast out the demon. So those are sort of the rules. But I talked about Amityville. I talked about the Smurl haunting. I talked about the Hinsdale house, which was a really, really bad one. And I talk about the Wells house that was in northeastern Pennsylvania. In all of these cases, Ed and Lorraine Warren were there, were somehow connected to these hauntings. And Ed was an exorcist, but there were better ones, and they had to bring in this guy named Father Alphonse Trebolt, and he was one that finally was able to go and cleanse the Smurl house. So that was how that ended. But that was a pretty horrific story with those people, and it's coming out as a Conjuring movie.
Interesting, because I thought we've had enough of these Conjuring movies. I'm not against them, but I think the story's been told, and I can understand. Just like Amityville, they made a couple of good ones, and I think there was just sequel after sequel after sequel, getting away from the original formula, if you will. So let's get back to.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say with the Conjuring Last Rites, it's probably the last one in the Conjuring franchise, but it's about the West Pittston Smurl haunting. So I'm excited. It comes out September the 5th, but my book will be out before then. So again, the Smurl haunting, my book is coming out basically around the same time. So I think it's going to be really a case of good timing, hopefully, you know.
And as you mentioned earlier, it is a good time. It's a good timing, of course. You mentioned earlier that Ed and Lorraine Warren were also involved. Would they investigate the Smurl haunting? And two, did you spend some time with them? Because it seems that you learn an awful lot from them too, right?
Yeah, I did. So the Smurl haunting happened in the 80s, and there was a guy named Bob Curran, Curran. He wrote a book, and it was co-written by Ed and Lorraine Warren and Jack and Janet Smurl. Now, Bob Curran's part was really good because he's a professional writer. The rest of it really wasn't good because Ed and Lorraine weren't writers. They weren't journalists, and neither were the Smurls. But anyway, there was a book that came out called The Haunted, 1988. So Ed and Lorraine Warren went on a 15-city tour, and they were going to be in Jim Thorpe, a nice little touristy place in northeastern Pennsylvania, relatively close to where I live. So I got permission from the promoter to meet with them, interview them. And so, you know, we hung out. I took some really good pictures that I still use. I use in the Smurl book, the Smurl haunting, and stayed in touch with them over the years. And I would call Ed and ask how he did battle with these demons, you know, and he would talk about invoking the spirit of Saint Michael the Archangel and Padre Pio and Jesus Christ to do battle. And I would call, and Lorraine would answer. You could hear the chickens in the background because she was a real lover of pets, and she would take care of these chickens. She had a whole bunch of chickens and kept some of them in her house and all that. But, you know, they treated me good. They treated me very good, and walked me through a lot of this, explained things to me. And, you know, and again, you either believe or you don't, you know, so you know, I do believe. And then also with Ed and Lorraine Warren, they have a lot of fans, but they also have a lot of people that don't like them for a lot of reasons. So, you know, there's a lot of that out there as well.
Well, welcome to the paranormal universe. Because even in the UFO circles and even Bigfoot circles, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Every scene has their pros and cons.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the conversations you had with them, what was the typical conversation with them over the phone or in person?
Oh, yeah. And someplace I have, again, I've made a couple of moves, so I don't know. I have cassette recordings, and I don't know where they are, but I have them. I'm sure they're here someplace, but I've looked. But anyway, I took notes and everything. But I would just ask him how he did battle with the demonic forces. So he would talk about that. He would talk about things like the power of Satan is strong, but the power of God is greater. You know, he talked about the holy water and the crucifix, things like that. They were very successful. And I think a lot of people resented and Lorraine Warren because of their success. For example, they would charge $5,000 to do a presentation at a college, and they did over 700 presentations. So they did that. They were on all the talk shows of the day, and I don't know what the pay is for that. It could be a couple of $1,000s, or at least it's, you know, a hotel room and travel expenses and all this. I mean, so you get some gratuities, if not the money, but you get the exposure. So they had exposure, but they were the ones that pretty much introduced the world of demonology, you know, to the public, when it was pretty much just the domain of maybe the Catholic Church and some esoteric people. You know, they were the only ones talking about it. But then, you know, with The Exorcist and The Omen and Rosemary's Baby, all of a sudden we're intrigued with the demonic. And those movies I mean, we couldn't get enough of them. We wanted to understand the demonic. And even, I'll say this too, Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath helped to go and take that term of Satanism and, you know, the demonic and popularize it. and look through it through what I call the apocalyptic awe, that they were able to go and look through something that was filled with fear and look at it through, not through fear, but through fascination. So that's the aspect of apocalyptic awe. But Ozzy Osbourne did that. And I'll tell you what, I mean, say what you will about him, whether you liked him or didn't, or liked his music or didn't, but his last benefit concert made more money than did Farm Aid and Fire Aid. I mean, he had a ton of fans out there, still does to this day. He added much to the musical tapestry, but I mean, presenting the demonic to the public probably in the same way that Sybil Leek did with witchcraft back, I guess, in the 50s, late 50s. So, these people were more than just entertainers. They were ambassadors. They were sort of pioneers, and they spread the word. So,
and it's interesting you bring that up because you were a rock journalist for a long time, so you were able to see all the different phases of rock and roll and hard rock and metal. And I think it was right around the 70s and 80s where a lot of this, I guess, the satanic imagery and the evil stuff started really getting more popularity, more mainstream with different kind of bands. I won't name them; everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to that, because now I'll ask you, because you spent many years on the road interviewing the band members and fans as well. Were a lot of these bands really into this, or were some of them just an act?
It's hard to tell you. Like, even when you talk about somebody like Aleister Crowley, the Beast, 666. I mean, what exactly was he? From everything I read about him, it wasn't that he was evil. I just think he was a hedonist. He wanted to get every single kick he could get, whether it was drugs, sex, whatever, whether it was gay, straight, or whatever. I mean, that's my take. And I think they had over in England, they had a society of, I'm trying to think what that is. They would do the cocaine and the opium, they would do their drug of choice. Some of these prostitutes would dress up as nuns, and it was a real orgy. It was but it was a certain society, and they were pretty much hedonist. I mean, they were just, and that's what Aleister Crowley said, something about if getting the most out of life, the most joy, the most kicks out of life could be the principle, the rule of the land, whatever. And I'm paraphrasing him big time, but anyway, he was just saying that, so let it be. So, but I just think that I don't know if they did incantations and tried to raise up the devil to give them, gifts and, whatever. I'm thinking that maybe it was more of pleasures of the flesh that are easily attainable. I mean, you don't need to go and knock on the devil's door to get that. They're there. So yeah. For everybody. So I mean, if that's what you want. So I mean, that's my my take on that. Even you look at somebody like Reverend Jim Jones. A minister, he preached the gospel. Was able to go and con those people. I mean, horrible man. But I mean, I don't think he made a pact with the devil. I mean, he acted like the devil. I mean, the things he did to those people was just like brutal, was horrible. Brought those people over to Guyana and said that there was going to be a nuclear war. So you got to go with me. And they believed him. And when they went there, it was hell. And then eventually, what was it, like close to 900 people ritualistically either took the cyanide Kool-Aid, or they were forced to do it or shot. So, I mean, they had bodyguards that were making them do it. Jim Jones didn't do that. He didn't take the drink. He shot himself. He took the coward's way out. So, but he was a real horrible person. And, you can't, and I mean, and in that sense, I think that he was evil. He was probably if you could put a term on it, he wasn't a sociopath. He was a psychopath. He had no empathy for people, and he enjoyed sexual torture. So he was a psychopath, and that's what he did. He was a bad man. Reverend Dad Jones.
Yeah, he just found a bunch of vulnerable people and then took advantage of them and then wound up costing them their lives, unfortunately. I even think that at that time, I know we're deviating, and my apologies, but I believe there was a senator or a governor from the United States that went down and visit.
Well, went to do a little, see what was going on there, because they heard there were problems, and then some of them got killed, and the one woman wrote a book and talked about this. But I mean, they had loudspeakers. I mean, Jim Jones reached the point where no longer was he preaching the word of Jesus Christ, but he claimed that he was Jesus Christ, and he was taking his methamphetamine. He had these cages, these prisons for his people. You know, he would get them on narcotics to keep them in check, all kinds of things. But I mean, the more you learn about this guy, the worse it is. It was really a terrible tragedy, and he promised them paradise. He said the temperature's in the 70s, there's no mosquitoes, it's beautiful. Well, no, it was like 110 degrees and mosquitoes, and it was just the reverse of that. It was a horrible, horrible environment, and a lot of those folks turned over their checks and Social Security and everything to his church, the People's Temple. So, you know, and again, the only thing, you know, I mean, what does it have to do with the paranormal? It's, you know, I mean, even with the paranormal, be a rational thinker. Mm-hmm. Find both sides. Use common sense. Don't be a lemming and follow the crowd. Don't do that. There's too much of that going around. So even with these podcasts and what we're talking about, get a second opinion, get a third opinion. You know, so that's what I'm saying. But I don't know how I got onto that thing. Oh, we were talking about Aleister Crowley and evil and Ozzy Osbourne, but it's all, you know, you call it what you will. I mean, evil's evil, you know. So and evil takes many forms. So
you just read my mind. Evil does take many forms, because then we have kind of a repeat thing with the Heaven's Gate, and then we also had Koresh. We had David Koresh too.
Yeah. I mean, again, the same thing. People are afraid. They're coerced. And so here's a charismatic leader, and they're very charismatic. And they say, follow me, I will protect you. I'll take care of you. And so again, like lemmings, they just follow this guy. They don't think, you know, and they really, for some people, they're taking the easy way out. It's a lot easier to let somebody else, dominate you, for you to be submissive to someone. It's a lot easier to do that than to be your own person. And we see that. And it's sad. It's really sad what, you know, some humans do to other humans.
Yes. Well, it's important to learn about the history, what happens, so it doesn't repeat itself. Unfortunately, it may in some other parts of the world. This could happen. But I'm gonna circle back to Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it for a while. Did you ever have any experiences with, and I asked with Annabelle, did you ever get to see this doll?
Yeah. Thanks for asking me that. My involvement with the Smurl haunting is threefold. And one, West Pittston is in my backyard. It's like a half an hour drive. So during the 80s, when I heard about this, I would go up there and just hang out and just see what was going on. There was a lot of hysteria. You know, now again, I didn't knock at their door. I didn't go and harass the Smurls, because I didn't think that that they needed that. So I gave them that respect. I didn't do that. I met Ed and Lorraine in 1988 and stayed friends with them over the years. And then the third thing, Tony Spira, who is Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law and owns all of the stuff at Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut, or did, decided to take Annabelle on the road. Now, this is in 2025, this year. So they went to New Orleans, went to West Virginia at the penitentiary. You probably know about that. Went to St. New Orleans, where a whole bunch of things happened. And Annabelle was there for 3 days. So 3 days you had the plantation fire. You had the jailbreak, 10 guys that busted out of the prison. And there was something else with Marie, the voodoo queen. Something else happened at her place. But so people were concerned that maybe Annabelle caused this. There was a lot of online chatter, maybe started by Tony Spira. I don't know. But anyway, Annabelle and the Devils on the Run tour was going to be at Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So I had to go. So I asked my wife if she'd go with me. She did. So we went there and we saw Annabelle. I looked at Annabelle, which was a Raggedy Ann doll. Did not feel any fear, anything. But I did meet Dan Rivera. Now, Dan Rivera was the chief handler for Annabelle. Dan was a former Methodist that converted to Catholicism. And if you're a Catholic and if you know any of these converts, they are so filled with the Spirit. I mean, they are just like amazing. They just sing and dance and talk the talk. And it was just great to hear him and talk about, Christianity and Catholicism. Dan Rivera, great guy. I mean, we hung out. I mean, like really connected. This was on Saturday, July the 11th. I was supposed to, the tour was the 11th, 12th, and 13th. I was supposed to call Dan on the 14th, Monday. Dan passed on Sunday, the night before I was supposed to talk to him. I was probably one of the last paranormal researchers to talk to Dan Rivera before he died. So he dies, and then all over the internet, people are saying, there were two camps. And the one camp was saying, and I have this in my book, I have a chapter called The Death of Dan Rivera. And I thought about this and I called some of my trusted friends just to discuss this, should I do this? And, and they felt that I had to do this. So the one camp of people were saying, let's not talk about his death. Let's give his family time to go and grieve. And that's the one side. The other side, including Chris McKennell, I believe his name is, and that is Ed and Lorraine's grandson, was saying that no, they never should have, Tony Spiro never should have taken Annabelle out of Monroe, Connecticut. They should have kept her there in that cage, in that box. And by taking it on the road, it moved those demonic forces around. I spoke with the Psychic Vincent sisters. They're from Butler, Pennsylvania, and they told me that they believe that by moving Annabelle around, it did something. It caused some disruption, and it might have probably did contribute to the death of Dan Rivera. Now, when I was there in Gettysburg, there was this 5-foot box. Annabelle was inside. The Lord's Prayer was tacked to the back. There was glass there taken from a Catholic church. There was holy water and holy oil that was infused into this 5-foot wooden box that Annabelle was in. And then the priest would bless this box, this cage, on a regular basis. Now, there was supposed to be a priest there, Father Bob. But when I was there in Gettysburg, there was no priest there. There was Dan Rivera and a couple of other handlers, and that was it. But you went into this room, and there was all kinds of the music, the gongs, I'm trying to think what that is, but that sound, sort of like purplish haze, very, very interesting ambiance there. And so that was Friday, July the 11th, when I saw Annabelle, looked into her eyes, and talked to Dan Rivera. And then they were saying that there was all kinds of 911 calls. I mean, just like beyond what you would expect on that Sunday, the 13th, July the 13th. So I don't know, but a number of people said that there was something there that they should have kept the doll in, as Lorraine wanted. She wanted Annabelle to stay there at the Warren Occult Museum. So now, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, Tony Spiro no longer owns any of this, and now it belongs to the comedian. And that just happened like kaboom. Like, where did that come from, I mean, I'm talking to him, all of a sudden that happened in a wink. And all of a sudden I'm getting emails from my publisher and all these other people. Did you hear who just purchased the Warren's Occult Museum? So I don't know what happened with that, but I did contact the Monroe, Connecticut Chamber of Commerce. I talked to those people trying to get some contact information, and I want to track down this guy and talk to him. So, which I will do. But so that's it. I mean, Diego, what do you think? I mean, the death of Dan Rivera. I mean, was this caused by Annabelle or what?
That's a great question. Because I was talking to somebody the other day. I don't believe in repeatable coincidences. So it's not a coincidence. Certain things happen when this thing went on the road. And I'm talking about Annabelle.
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of something, because there's a reason why this doll has not been taken on the road and used as some sort of not to entertain people. I know a lot of people are curious because of the Conjuring movies, and we'll get into that in a second. But it gives me the vibes of, like, down in the Florida Keys, Robert the Doll.
Right? Oh yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Everybody goes from A to
Robert
B.
the Doll.
Yeah.
It stays there, and there are certain rules you have to follow in order for you to approach the doll. You have to ask permission to take pictures.
Yeah, I know.
Or to talk to it. And if you kind of break the rules, where you kind of F around and find out, usually bad things happen to people. They send letters for apology.
I've heard that. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah.
And I'm kind of thinking maybe that should be taking a similar approach with Annabelle. There could be something to it. I don't know if it's the doll itself or maybe the energy that it brought with everybody being there. I don't know.
That's a good point. That's almost like mass hallucinations. Maybe everybody projecting their expectations onto this doll. I mean, that's, again, when you talk about pagans and Wiccans, they talk about not just them. I mean, everybody. We have innate abilities, that we rarely tap into. And why can't that be one? Why can't we have, like, somehow conjured up something, manifested something, collectively? I think, when people went to see Annabelle, they were all pretty much thinking the same thing. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good theory. I mean,
yeah, it could have been kind of like a battery. Let's say Annabelle's battery was kind of not fully charged all these years being in isolation, but now that it's in display.
Yeah. Good point.
All the energy people bring, it kind of, I guess, elevated the frequency or something in that doll, and maybe it doesn't want to be a circus sideshow.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't blame it if that's what it is. So,
well, and let me just say this too about you were damn, you didn't want to go and say anything disrespectful about maybe that was a commercial venture. When I was there for those 3 days, they reported 1,240 people lined up over the 3 days, paying $40 each. So you could get out your abacus and do 40 times 1,240. But, I paid 40 and my wife paid 40, and we did it online. So it was closer to $100. It wasn't $80. It was a lot more. So they made some good money there. And that was Gettysburg, and then West Virginia, and then San Antonio, and then New Orleans. And they made their way up. They went up to Maine. So they did a bunch of them, so that was a pretty good payday.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not against making money. But I'm thinking maybe this should have been handled a little bit different. I'm not an expert, but now that with the reporter, or I don't even know the comedian's name, you might have mentioned it.
I forget it too. Yeah.
And maybe it's, I'll Google it one day. I think it could get worse now. I don't know what he's going to do with it. I don't know if he respects the paranormal subject or the people.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So maybe things could get worse. So I would be very, very careful with handling that particular item. It was kept under protection for a reason. So whether you believe it or not, it's the evidence is there.
I would also just tell your listeners again, if I don't know if they're into reading, but my book, The Smurl Haunting, when Ed and Lorraine came to town, we talk about Annabelle. We talk about the death of Dan Rivera. We talk about, what happened, what some people feel was really in play there, with demonic forces. So again, just look at that, just entertain the possibility. I mean, we don't know what it is, but I mean, that demonic energies could be one of the possibilities.
Yeah, and I think now, with the rising popularity of paranormal subject now, even Bigfoot and UFOs, I don't know. Maybe we're tapping into something that is ready to make a return somehow. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. Maybe something's going to happen.
Well, but you were saying before that you're thinking maybe there were too many Conjuring movies, right? That maybe that they just they overdid it, maybe just
Well, in a way, I think it brought a lot of attention to Ed and Lorraine and also to the Annabelle doll.
Yeah.
That might have to be something with what happened down the road. But I'm thinking, were you a fan? And I might have asked you, and I'm sorry I forgot. Were you a fan of the movies? How do you? I mean, at least the first movie was very well done.
Yeah.
How accurate was that? Do you think?
Well, that was the one that I think they went to Rhode Island. It was the Perrone farmhouse, I believe, and there were things happening there. But in all the cases, I mean, whether it was there or Enfield in North London, or the Wells house, or the Smurl house, I mean, pretty much the same things were happening. I mean, and when you talk about demonic possession, you're talking about like a process of temptation, infestation, and then possession. I don't think the Smurls were possessed, but I think that they were terrorized. I think there was infestation there with the demons. But I think because of their strong Catholic faith, they were able to fight this off. Conversely, I think because of their strong Catholic faith, they were almost like a target. I believe I've heard that the demons, the devil, would much rather get a person of the cloth, someone who's dedicated their life to Christ, just because that's a more worthy prize, rather than somebody like maybe me, but not, so anyway, I was going to say me and you, but I'm not going to say that, but, but so a man of the cloth is somebody that the devil wants to get. So, but when they did these investigations, there were also books that were written. Ed and Lorraine got the credit for writing them, but they had co-writers that wrote about these things. So, I mean, they had presence. And again, if anything, they introduced these topics to the public in a very successful way. So, I mean, they had a commercial enterprise, and it was a successful one. But so then Tony Spira took over. And as the son-in-law, he married Judy, their daughter, and now evidently he has sold it to this comedian. So again, don't know how that's going to play out, but I don't know. I think there's red flags there. I think there's some danger ahead. That's what I think.
Yeah, to be a fly on the wall as to why this deal happened. Who knows? Sometimes it's hard to turn down money. Yeah, but I think with something this dangerous, I don't know. I don't know. My opinion doesn't matter, but I think maybe the deal should not have happened. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what this comedian's planning on doing with all these artifacts. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of things there. There's coffins with vampires and all kinds of stuff. I mean, so I don't know, but we'll see. I'm going to pursue this. I need to get back with the Monroe, Connecticut Chamber of Commerce and try to get, try to track down this guy and just have a conversation with him, and maybe he needs to have voice too on a platform. So if I could get in touch with him, I'll definitely let you know, and you could, it'd be great to go and just have an interview with him, and just to spread the word and let him know, tell the world what his intentions are.
Yeah, it'd be more than fair. And I think people think the worst offhand, but I think after what happened, of course, people are going to be worried.
Mm-hmm.
That's to undersell it. Definitely worried. And so now that you have these two books coming out, and I know you'll be published soon, is there anything else coming down the road? And I know it's writing a book is a hard thing. I've tried it. It sucked the soul out of me. At the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to write. What's in your target line right now? What other subjects do you think you'll be covering if you were to write it?
Yeah, I'm playing around with a fiction piece, and tentative title is Florida Rapture, and it's kind of neat. But just characters I'm making up and see how they interact with each other. So I've never done that, so I just want to see if I could try my hand at at fiction writing. And that'll be the next project. I'll play around with that. But the next 6 months, next year, I'll be promoting the Smurl haunting. And the other book is The Paranormal Apocalypse, that talks about fear, but talks about people being manipulated by fear through religion, through politics, through society. And these are people that are afraid, and they're the ones who will affiliate with people like Reverend Jim Jones and Charles Manson and all the other cult leaders. And again, it's a dangerous proposition to allow, your life for somebody else to be holding your life in their hands. That's the way I should put it. So, I warn against that. But that's going to be a pretty amazing book, and I'm looking forward to Paranormal Apocalypse. It's a new venue, and we've talked about ghosts and demons and flying saucers and cryptids and Bigfoot and all that, but we rarely talk about the apocalypse. And we're talking about Revelation. We're talking about the 7 seals, and there's a term called eschatology, or the eschatologists. And I just learned that not too long ago, but these are the folks that are concerned with the end times. So the eschatologists are concerned with the end times. And some people feel that the apocalypse already happened. Some people feel it's right around the corner, it's going to happen. And some people feel that we're living in it now. So nobody knows. So, take your pick. But the book's pretty interesting. And I start off with H.P. Lovecraft. And the reason I do that, I love H.P. Lovecraft, most incredible dude going. He was able to go and define and describe fear better than anybody else, better than Jung, Freud, anybody down the pike. And Lovecraft said that the most basic emotion of man is fear. And the most powerful emotion is fear of the unknown. So that was H.P. Lovecraft. You don't get any better than that. And all of his horror stories, they were so horrific because the human being wasn't able to comprehend what was happening. I mean, the fear was so complex. So that's what Lovecraft said. And all these things like Ancient Aliens, totally ripped off of from Lovecraft. I mean, Lovecraft talked about this first. So,
sometimes it's not who does it first, but who gets on TV first.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. It's and even with somebody like what's his name, who did Chariots of the Gods.
Von Daniken?
Eric von Daniken, he was an Austrian innkeeper, and he wrote this book that went against every single scientific, archaeological premise, but people loved it. People bought in to not the science, but the pseudoscience. They bought in not to the truth, but to the conspiracy. We wanted to hear about ancient aliens coming down here and giving us the secret. When really the reality is this: the ancients were pretty far progressed. For example, when you look at people in the Middle East that did things with astronomy and mathematics and all that. As a matter of fact, over in a place called Egypt, they built these pyramids, and we don't even know how they did them. We have like a million theories about how they built the pyramids. And one of them being that the Space Brothers came down because we were so stupid and backward that the Space Brothers came down and showed us how to build them. Well, I don't think so. I think they did it. I don't think they used 20,000 slaves, but I think that they used fulcrums and everything else. They figured it out, but we haven't figured it out. With our computers and everything, we have not figured out how conclusively how the Egyptians built those pyramids. If it was the Egyptians, I mean, I don't know, but whoever did. So,
and I think we kind of know who did it, but we'll save that for another episode, my friends. So,
okay.
So for the listeners of Let's Find Out that want to learn more about you, where you're going to be in your books, what can they go find out?
Yeah, you could check me out at www.maximfurek.com. And if you want to go and score an autographed copy of any of my books, you could do it. You could contact me through the website, or you could find them on Amazon.com. And again, the books that you might want to be looking for, again, The Smurl Haunting, When Ed and Lorraine Came to Town, to be published in the next 3 weeks. And then Paranormal Apocalypse is This How It Ends, to be coming out at the end of September. And Diego, hang on before we leave. Let me just go and right now, here is the prototype, Paranormal Apocalypse, and there's the gray looking like a Grim Reaper. And so what do you think of that?
That's an amazing cover. I like how the whole thing, it looks like it's just very ancient. I can see like the scratches. I can see the skulls.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, I like it. So we're playing around with some other ones, but I think I want to go. I want to go with this, and so yeah. Well, thank you so much for the chat. I hope I wasn't too long-winded, and but but I probably was. So
no, not at all, my friend. I really enjoyed talking to you as always, and I think once the book is released, you're done doing your tour, let's come back and we'll do a little more deep dive into the Smurl haunting and see what's going on there. But thank you again for being on the show, and good luck out there, my friend.
And thank you, Diego. And for the listeners, thank you for listening. And give Diego a thumbs up or whatever mechanism it is. I don't know, how do they work that? I mean, what would be the best thing for your viewers to do?
Like, share, and subscribe.
Okay.
Thank you, my friend.
Copyright Diego the Podcaster. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out with Diego is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.